Whoa, yeah. If you're right there right now, you caught me laughing. In fact, Sly and the Family Stone once had a record called "You Caught Me Smiling Again." But I'm laughing. If you watch it now that you're watching the video, because um, I had to keep moving this thing and rescheduling it because I had put so much, prepared so much stuff. I didn't realize how much I had prepared, and and then I had to learn so many new things on this technology of scheduling and canceling and rescheduling. I had an absolute ball. So that's why I'm ready to smile and say to you, goodness. And I say goodness because I don't know whether you're watching morning, afternoon, or evening, but isn't it great to have good in front of your salutation? I'm Sporty King. I'm on early with Glue Wednesday. Excuse me. I'm not on early. I'm on early in terms of the broadcast message, which is now scheduled for 1:30 p.m. Eastern. So we've got less than 3 minutes to go to start. And I do apologize to those of you who had 1 o'clock set in your day and had that time blocked out for me. But as I said, I called them technical difficulties, but the technical difficulty was that I kept thinking of more stuff to add. And so I'm pretty happy with it, and I think you'll enjoy it. So especially if you're watching the video, not to worry, all is well. And I can tell you right now, as you're watching the video, be ready to drop something in the comments because I'm always looking to read what we have in the thread and see how that adds to the synchronicity of the message. So if you're here, and I get on early to do my shout out, so if you're here, please give me let me know that you're here and I can give you a shout out. And that's whether you're on Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, or YouTube. Yes, I'm broadcasting to all three now. So that, again, part of the little challenge for me. But challenge is what it's all about. So we're learning. We got less than 2 minutes for today's message. And I welcome you. If this is your first time, oh, good. Hey, what's happening, Roger Carroll? Then I could always show those. What's happening, Roger Carroll? Okie dokie, which is like the main way to say it's okay. Yeah, when you can say okie dokie, because you can't say that with a bad spirit, right? You got to say okie dokie. You kind of got to mean it. So thank you, Roger Carroll. And yeah, here we go with about less than a minute for today's message. But if it's your first time, Glue Wednesday was born out of the fact that so many times people say Wednesday is hump day. But that's old school where we say you either work Monday to Friday or you work the weekend. So we didn't really acknowledge flex time, which has always been there. So that's why Wednesday was called hump day. I don't think it's a negative connotation, but I like to make things even more positive than they are. And so I decided to say that Wednesday is the middle of the traditional 7-day week, regardless of when you work. So it keeps the week beginning and the weekend together. Thus, it's the glue, and it brings us into a prayerful mode, and the glue becomes GLUE, God's love, undoes everything. Not that it tears things apart, but what is torn apart, God's love will bring it back together. What is happening? Longtime friend, exactly. What's going on, Terry Blade? We got less than a minute to go for today's message. You know how God is. I just looked at your name the other day, Blade, and I was going, I was actually going to contact you. So here we go. It's the synchronicity of mind. God puts people in our minds at the right times. Intuition is one of the things we're going to talk about today. So yeah, be careful and conscious of of how you pay attention to and use your intuition. See, there's always a sneak preview, and that's why I like to joke and say, hey, you can't make this stuff up. When we have it going on, we got it going on. So speaking of on, let me put my glasses on so I can read. Because like I said, I put together a lot of good stuff. Meanwhile, Roger Carroll, you're probably saying, what is he talking about? Well, Terry is joining us from LinkedIn. So that's another thing I'll have to remember is when I quote or talk to somebody, I acknowledge where they're joining in from. Roger Carroll is on with the message from Facebook. Terry Love is on the thread with a message from LinkedIn. So that's great. We've got some diversity. Now all we need is somebody to let us know they're watching on YouTube, and we'll have all three covered. But let's get rolling with today's message, all right? Now, as you saw in the promo, from the often quoted yet unlisted books, not in the Bible, we get Say It Loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And I say that, oops, oh, oops, 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 oops. I didn't have my thing there scheduled. Okay, and say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. And it's from where? The book of 1 James, 1 James Brown, 1968. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. All right. And I'll be using this quotable book and then putting it in context for today's glue message, which is actually, what are you proud of? That's the question I want to know from you. What are you proud of? So get ready to write that in the thread because I'm definitely going to say it. Okay. Here, oh, yeah, you finally turned on your notification. That's what, yeah, you kind of got to do things to make things happen. So, and that's what Terry is saying from LinkedIn. He's saying, I finally turned on my notifications. And then, of course, the day you turned on your notification, I rescheduled the thing 3 times. So that's cool, but that's what we got to do. So I appreciate you for doing that, Terry. But check this out. According to and learn from my good friend Lorenzo King, no relation, but Lorenzo is a DJ here in Charlotte. And you know what he said to me once? He said, James Brown never said that he was black and proud. He only gave the instruction to say it loud. Even to say it louder. So as you think about it, yeah, James Brown says, say it loud. And then the chorus in the background says, I'm black and I'm proud. And then he says, say it louder. And they say, I'm black and I'm proud. And then he says, say it louder. So James Brown never says, I'm black and I'm proud. And as we enjoy this year's celebration of Black History Month, I decided to shine a light feature on the Godfather of Soul and some facts that I actually didn't know about him to bring about another fact, a sub fact for our broadcast today, and that is the importance that pride plays in your life. The importance that pride plays in your life. And so first, I will start with a pause for the cause and ask you, as I prepared you, to put in the chat, I want you to finish this sentence. I am proud of. How would you finish that sentence? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes because there's also a delay in the broadcast when it comes. Meanwhile, Terry on LinkedIn sent in a one-word legacy, which does not fit. He wasn't doing that to finish this sentence, but in talking about James Brown. Because yeah, with Black History Month, so this feature is on the legacy of James Brown. Some of the things that I didn't know, and hopefully some of the things that you may not have known about him as well. And let's find them out together. But for right now, put in a thread. And even if you're watching the broadcast, still put it in the thread. Why? Because the beauty of every broadcast is to see how the whole picture comes together, the synchronicity at the end. I have a prepared message for you. And as I like to joke with people, I say, I know what I came to talk about, but sometimes I don't know what I'm going to say. But I have something prepared to say, and then I speak in the borders as well, and in between the paragraphs, because that's where I'm going to also be adding you and your comments and just the joy and the synchronicity. Okay, so even if you're watching the broadcast, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, put your comments, finish that sentence, I am proud of, and put that in the comment so that at the end, when it all comes together, we can refer to it. Now, Terry on LinkedIn, he's already put, I am proud of my legacy. So he had legacy in there already talking about James Brown, but he's also saying, I'm proud of my legacy. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that's really important. A lot of times we have to recognize legacy is not about you being dead. Legacy begins while you're alive. Because we're going to say something about you. You're always working on your legacy. And so you can be proud of, he can be proud of his legacy now. And so can you. You don't have to wait to die to be proud of your legacy, because actually then you won't be necessarily proud of it, but we may be proud of the legacy that you left behind. So why not focus now on leaving a proud legacy? Thank you for that, Terry. On Facebook, Roger Carroll wrote, I'm proud of what God has allowed me to achieve in terms of my relationships with people and the respect that they give me. Can't you see? Now, these two people right now who are on with me live are not on the same broadcast social media outlet, but look at the synchronicity. Isn't legacy what God has allowed you to achieve in terms of your relationships with people and the respect that they give you? Isn't that a beautiful legacy? Again, put your stuff in the thread and then you can see just how it connects to others, because that's what we need to look for more in our world, are the commonalities rather than the differences. Now, the differences, what we've got to recognize with the differences is that different does not mean enemy. Excuse me. Difference means variety. You hear people talking about diversity. You hear people talking about inclusion. You know, that's getting a different part of everyone's formula, their piece of the puzzle, so it makes it brighter and right for everybody else. On LinkedIn, Terry put amen. Yeah, and I think amen is AMEN, a message that everyone needs. So yeah, you've got to see how things connect. And Victor Morris just joined us on Facebook. Vic, before I move on, finish that sentence. I am proud of. What can you put on that, use to finish that sentence, Vic? Vic comes in saying, hello, fam. And the reason he says hello, fam, is because when we do this broadcast, I am just blessed and I enjoy the fact that we've got our regular people come on, and when you come on, you become a part of the family. And we call it the sporty family, which I appreciate. But the key is family is chosen. And that's part of the beauty of what we do. I appreciate you for choosing to join this broadcast, whether you join it live or watching the video. And here Vic has already answered. He says, I'm proud of being who I am today. Promo for my Friday online message, which is called Gift Friday. And it's gift because G-I-F-T, God is for today. So you're proud of who you are today. That's what it's all about. And so again, see, look at the synchronicity. If we look at Terry and Roger Carroll look at Terry talking about his legacy, and then Roger Carroll defining that legacy of how people treat her and how God has allowed her to receive that and what to achieve. That's who am I today? Because who I was yesterday may be some skin that I have shed to go forward so that I can be proud of the legacy, because some people are going to leave a legacy of hatred and anger. But if you can start to focus on leading a legacy of love and positivity, you can be proud of who you are today. So I'm going to go on now and give you just some pieces of what I learned about James Brown for Black History Month. And you can feel free to still write stuff in the thread as I'm going along, and then I'll come back to that. Okay, so but at age 15, oh man, and look at that, we're talking legacy, James Brown. So at age 15, James Brown and some of his companions were arrested, and while breaking into cars. James Brown was sentenced to 8 to 16 years of incarceration, but he was released after 3 years for good behavior. While at the Alto Reform School, he formed a gospel group. Subsequently, it was secularized and renamed the Flames, later the Famous Flames. It soon attracted the attention of rhythm and blues and rock and roll shouter Little Richard, whose manager helped promote the group. And isn't that something? I thought Little James Brown came before Little Richard, but Little Richard manager helped promote the group. And intrigued by their demo record, Ralph Bass, the artist and repertoire man for the King label, not Sporty King, but the King label, which I believe Little Richard was under, brought the group to Cincinnati, Ohio to record. Well, maybe let me take that back. Maybe Ralph Bass wasn't with the King label, so I'm not going to just put him on that. But that's the next step. Okay, so Little Richard was impressed with him. He promoted him to the group, and then Ralph Bass, the artist and repertoire man for King label, brought the group to Cincinnati, Ohio to record for King Records subsidiary Federal Records. Now, the label owner for Federal Records Sid Nathan, he hated James Brown's first recording, which is the song Please, Please, Please. Some of us know that, in 1956. But the record eventually sold 3 million copies and launched James Brown's extraordinary career. Along with placing nearly 100 singles and almost 50 albums on the bestseller charts, James Brown broke new ground with 2 of the first successful live and in concert albums. His landmark Live at the Apollo in 1963 stayed on the charts for 66 weeks. And his follow-up in 1964, Pure Dynamite Live at the Royal, charted for 22 weeks. Now, during the 1960s, James Brown was known as Soul Brother Number One. I remember hearing on the album, he's universally known as Soul Brother Number One. Soul Brother Number One, James Brown, James Brown. All right. And wait, I have an addition here because we want to talk about pride again. So Terry on LinkedIn also put he's proud of his sons and their families. Yeah, that's right. You don't have to stop putting what you're proud of in the thread just because we're moving on. As you hear things, you may think of something else or someone else that you're proud of. Put it in there. And then I love to go back and link it all, right? Because where is the legacy going? But through the sons and through the families. My legacy is going through my nieces and nephews since I don't have any maternal children. But those are my kids. And then I've volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club. I've coached Community League basketball. I've been involved with so many youth activities. I'm a co-founder of a website called HeyUgly.org, where we're talking about battling self-esteem, bully prevention, suicide, and alcohol and substance abuse to help teens feel better about themselves. So yeah, your legacy is spreading out to a lot of different families, which is why Vic came in saying, hello, fam. All right. And this is what God is allowing you to achieve, as Roger Carroll said. See, we keep mixing it all back in. And even if you're not on the same social media outlet, you can hear a little about what's going across the media lines that we have here in this virtual world. So, as I was saying, in the 1960s, they started calling James Brown Soul Brother Number One. And his hit recordings of that decade have often been associated with the emergence of the Black arts and Black nationalist movements as he began devoting more and more energy to social causes. And I remember when I first read about Aretha Franklin, when I saw the movie, actually, I didn't realize how she was so involved with civil unrest and social action, and not just her, but also Billie Holiday. You know, wow! When you start to look into people's history, and not just during Black History Month. I happen to look into their history before Black History Month, but I'm mentioning it now. But it's showing here, in the 60s, James Brown was very involved. And in 1966, he recorded a record, Don't Be a Dropout. Don't Be a Dropout, an eloquent and impassioned plea to the Black community to place more focus on education. A staunch believer in exclusively nonviolent protest, sounds like Dr. King, Brown once declared to H. Rap Brown, who was the leader of the Black Panthers, I'm not going to tell anybody to pick up a gun. So politicians recruited James Brown to help calm cities struck by civil insurrection and avidly courted his endorsement. On April 5th, 1968. Now, you may remember what happened on April 4th, 1968, and maybe you don't, but you're about to know. Remember now, that was the day that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. On April 5th, the day after the assassinations, with riots raging around the country, James Brown gave a rare televised live concert in Boston in an attempt to prevent rioting there. His efforts succeeded. Young Bostonians stayed home to watch the concert on TV, and the city largely avoided violence. Never knew that. So gave a live concert on TV to tell people, stay home and watch the concert instead of going out and rioting. Wow. Novel idea, right? And a few months later, he wrote and recorded Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. A protest anthem that has unified and inspired generations. Yes, legacy. And then he also, that in 1969, he wrote, I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door, I'll get it myself. So in the 60s, you see James Brown with his civil responsibility going at it, right? I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door, I'll get it myself. Then in the 1970s, James Brown became the godfather of soul, and his hit songs stimulated several dance crazes and were featured on the soundtracks of a number of what were called blaxploitation films. And these were sensational, low-budget, action-oriented motion pictures with African-American protagonists. So you may remember Superfly, the Mac, Shaft. Those were the blaxploitation, but it was blaxploitation. And here's a quick commercial on Facebook. Vic said Brown was the man. And Terry on LinkedIn says that was against welfare. I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door, I'll get it myself. Now you're starting to see it, right? And then on Facebook, Roger Carroll says the movie in which Chadwick Boseman played James Brown showed the Boston concert incident. Thank you, Roger Carroll. And it's fun. Yeah, and you know what? Now I remember that, but I didn't get it. I actually didn't get that. So that's why it's good. And then here's another Victor's putting on Facebook. Across 110th Street was another blaxploitation film. There were a lot of them. And remember, we used to go to them and we had a ball at them. Yes, we did. All right. So that's in the 1970s that James Brown's songs were so caught up in the soundtracks in the blaxploitation movies. And then when hip hop emerged as a viable commercial music in the 1980s, then his songs again assumed center stage as the hip hop DJs frequently incorporated sampling, which are audio snippets from his records. And we heard a lot, we still hear a lot of records that are sampling and everything, but mostly James Brown records get sampled because of the beat that he has in the background. Now, he also appeared in several motion pictures in the 1980s, and that is including The Blues Brothers in 1980, and then Rocky IV in 1985, and attained global status as a celebrity, especially in Africa, where his tours attracted enormous crowds and generated a broad range of new musical fusions. Yet Brown's life continued to be marked by difficulties, including the tragic death of his third wife, charges of drug use, and a period of imprisonment for a 1988 high-speed highway chase in which he tried to escape pursuing police officers. Yet it was Brown's uncanny ability to scream on key, to sing soulful low ballads, as well as electrifying up-tempo tunes to plumb the rhythmic possibilities of the human voice and instrumental accompaniment, and to blend blues, gospel, jazz, and country vocal styles together, made him one of the most influential vocalists of the 20th century. His extraordinary dance routines featuring deft deployments of microphones and articles of clothing as props, acrobatic leaps, full impact knee landings, complex rhythmic patterns, dazzling footwork, dramatic entrances, and melodramatic exits redefined public performance with popular music and inspired generations' legacy of imitators, not least of being Michael Jackson. Isn't that a nice long explanation of what we see when James Brown performs on stage? But check this out. His careful attention to every aspect of his show. He was involved with every aspect of his show, from arranging songs to supervising sidemen, from negotiating performance fees to selecting the costumes. And what that did was guarantee his audience a uniformly high level of professionalism every night and establish a precedent in artistic autonomy. In the course of an extremely successful commercial career, Brown's name was associated with an extraordinary number and range of memorable songs, distinctive dance steps, formative fashion trends, and even significant social issues. A skilled dancer and singer with an extraordinary sense of timing, Brown played a major role in bringing rhythm to the forefront of popular music. Have we ever thought about that? Roger Carroll wrote on Facebook, without James Brown, there was no moonwalking Michael Jackson. Ha! Without, ooh, and I even, ha! What Eddie Murphy said, that's a James Brown lyric. Ha! And so it's great. I hope you're learning some new things about James Brown because this, that again, these are things that I didn't know all of it, and especially Roger Carroll has helped me see, because I saw the movie where Bozeman played James Brown, and it didn't click in my head when they showed the television broadcast of his live concert, how that was used to assuage the rioting in Boston. But in addition to providing melody and embellishment, the horn players in his bands function as a rhythm section. They had to think like drummers. And musicians associated with him, Jimmy Nolan, Bootsy Collins, Fred Wesley, and Maceo Parker. And if you're a James Brown fan, you've heard some of those names screamed out as James Brown was singing. Fred! Get a drummer some, Fred. All right. And he said, Maceo, I want you to blow. And the thing is, by the way, flashing back, you know who got him out of jail, by the way, after his 3 years of good behavior? Bobby Bird. Bobby Bird's family. Bobby Bird, Bobby. And then Victor on Facebook said, say what Bozeman said. Wow, I must check it out. Yeah. Oh, okay. You're going to check out the movie. That's what you're saying, Vic? I must check it out. Or did Bozeman say that? But either way, that's cool, right? You got to check it out as you learn these new things. So now you see them and you see them with a different eye. But check this out. All of these things, James Brown played an important role in creating the core vocabulary and grammar of funk music. And Brown was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986. He received a Grammy Award for Lifetime Achievement in 1992, and he was a 2003 recipient of a Kennedy Center honor. As they say at the end of his songs, James Brown, James Brown. And so just as I went back into aspects of James Brown's life, I want to share my affirmation from my book, Affirmations, which are acronyms that become affirmations, because I don't just put a word to each letter. I let the words define the word. So pride, I have pride as the essentials equal discipline, intuition, recognition, and prayer. Those are the essentials of pride. And they remind us that sometimes walking backwards refreshes our perspective of what we really need. Perhaps even who we are, because our actions speak louder than our words. Have you ever heard someone use the saying, I don't hear what you're saying because what you're doing is so loud? In the record, James Brown never says the lyric, I'm black and I'm proud, yet the lyrics add up to his pride. So let's look at the essentials of pride and look at the lyrics to James Brown, Say It Loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And first, before I say that, I want to click on something that Victor said on Facebook, and that he is a legend of all times. He is a well-respected legend. But let's look at pride, and let's first look at discipline. In the song, Say It Loud, I'm black and I'm proud, it starts on, James Brown said, some people say we've got a lot of malice. Some say it's a lot of nerve. But I say we won't quit moving until we get what we deserve. You see, discipline is a controlled behavior. It's self-control. And it does not necessarily mean to punish. In Hebrews 12, 5 through 6, it says, my son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be worried when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. So discipline. Some people say we got a lot of nerve, a lot of malice. Some say it's a lot of nerve. But I say we won't quit moving until we get what we deserve, because that's the discipline we have. And then there's the recognition. And the song, the lyrics say, now we've been buked, which I would assume means we've been rebuked. Now we've been buked and we've been scorned. We've been treated bad, talking about as sure as you're born. You see, recognition is sometimes about seeing how you're being treated and understanding that if you don't like the way someone treats you, you change the way you allow them to treat you. So that's what he's saying. Reckon we've been buked and we've been scorned. We've been treated bad, talking about as sure as you're born. So he's recognizing that someone says, well, yeah, I'm going to treat you that way because of the way you were born. But you have to recognize that if you don't like the way someone treats you, you have to change the way you allow them to treat you. You see, I've got something coming up later in that, so let me not fast forward to that, because I think it'll make this, it'll bring us back to this even quicker. Because the next letter in pride is the E for essentials. And in the and by the way, yeah, that quote was by me. I quoted myself. If you don't like the way people treat you, change the way you allow them to treat you. And let me park right there for a minute, because that is what happens. We allow people to treat us that way. I had a broadcast a few weeks ago talking about family, how sometimes we give family a pass based on the fact that they're family, or friends who've been longtime friends. Well, they're family, well, we've been friends for so long. And then we continue to allow them to mistreat you. Not to do. Just as Vic came in and just as Roger Carroll opened up with saying, hey, sporty family, hey, family. We choose our family. I'm not knocking our maternal family, but I am reminding you that maternal means that you came from the same parents, because it could be a mixed family. Okay, you might not have come from the same mother. You may be married into a maternal family. But the key is, these were people who were put into your life. And as you mature, you learn where they get to stay in your life. And so the next letter, again, is the essentials. I'm sorry, and I won't go on. Let me keep parked there one more time, because, again, the point I was making is that we allow people to treat us the way they treat us. See, once they treat us a certain way and they, quote unquote, get away with it, which we hate to make it sound that way, because a lot of times they don't necessarily do it on purpose, but they do. They do it. It's just not necessarily on purpose. Most hurt, I believe, is not on purpose, but it is a result of actions that someone could have taken. If we go back to that discipline in D, that discipline in pride, and that self-control, you can control. You know who you're dealing with. We slip up. We don't slip up. We slip up once or twice in our lives with speaking back to our parents. Haven't you had to remember who you were talking to? All right. So I think that's why sometimes I think it's important for us not to get so caught up in allowing someone to mistreat us based on family or friendship status, because they know if they are family and friends, and know us well, then they know how they should not disrespect us. So let's move to the E in pride, and that's for essential. Because in the song it says, just as sure as it takes two eyes to make a pair, brother, we can't quit until we get our share. Now, I ain't singing this, but I know y'all know the song background. You're just hearing the words being read. Because, see, that's the deep part about it. We hear the beat that James Brown says, and sometimes we don't think about how the depth of the words. And I'm going to go back for a second, because on LinkedIn, something y'all didn't see on the other ones, and Terry Love wrote, you teach people how to treat you. Boom. Okay. And there we go. If you don't like the way people treat you, change the way you allow them to. Fam. Okay. So Roger Carroll has to go. So see you later, Roger Carroll. Thanks for joining us. God bless you and love you. All right. So here's back to that essentials. All right. Where was I? Okay. Oops. Let me go back. Essentials. But it's just as sure as it takes two eyes to make a prayer, brother, we can't quit until we get our share. You see, though we walk by faith, not by sight, It was doubting Thomas in John 20:24-29 who said, I don't believe it unless I see the nail wound. I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands, put my fingers into them, and place my hand into the wound in his side. And then in John 20:29, Jesus told him, you believe because you have seen me. But blessed are those who haven't seen me and believe anyway. See, so the question is, what do you really need for you to see God in your life? What are your essentials? And Robert Hunter came in on Facebook and he said, is the word you got to listen to not, is the word you got listen to not the beat? The beat is Cuba, is the word account. I know, I think I know what you said. You got to listen to the words, not the beat, because it's it's these serial auto correct you and make up a new word for you. All right. So rewrite that one for us in Facebook, Robert, Peanut. Okay. That's my brother who we grew up with, because it is, you have to listen to the words, not just the beat. The words are what count. And I know that's what he's saying, but it's the words that counts, not just the beat. All right. And then the next letter is the I in pride, and that's for intuition. And he says, I worked on a job with my feet and my hands, but all the work I did was for the other man. Now, for intuition, I got this definition from an online article called The Power of Intuition by a man named Ward Andrews, and that's on design.org. I want to give him his credit because that was my source. And he says that the power of intuition lies in its that's the person who I'm quoting, by the way. The power of intuition lies in its ability to empower you. When you listen to your intuition, you are guiding yourself. You are building trust in the one person you always have with you, which is you. You are learning to give yourself what you need instead of what you or other people want. So listen to your intuition. And here's that corrected sentence on Facebook, by the way, Robin. It's the words you got to listen to, not the beat. The beat is cool, but the word is what counts. All right? Okay? But here, speaking of that intuition, I grew up with a lesson from my father that I must never consider myself as working for anyone except myself. See, so I've always had the mindset that I work with people at a company for life. And this is not a defiant mindset. It's one that says, I will always give my best, sometimes with no need for recognition. And it's an entrepreneurial mindset. I work with people at a company for myself. It's not going against the grain of working at the company. It's not denying that you have a boss, a supervisor, a superior. But it's saying that if I work for myself, you see, there's something I'll do for me that I won't do for the company. Sometimes when the clock says 5 o'clock and I work 9 to 5, sometimes, you know what, I got something to do with my family at 5:30. No, I can't stay another 5 minutes. I'm out. But if I'm working for myself, I pace that a whole lot differently. But the main thing is I always give my best. I don't need recognition for every single thing that I do, but I'm always going to give my best. So whether I'm working with a person at a company, or I'm doing it for myself, and I'm going to give my best so that person and that company will have the benefit of my full labor. And what do you think that does? I don't need recognition. And that brings us right back to, what do you know? Recognition. And so James Brown in the lyrics, it says, now we demand a chance to do things for ourselves. We're tired of beating our head against the wall and working for someone else. Entrepreneurship. And so back to pride, the lyrics say, now we're people, we're like the birds and the bees, but we'd rather die on our feet than be living on our knees. Now, I've always credited Booker T. Washington with a quote that I thought I heard, which was, I was never a slave because I never thought like a slave. But I couldn't find the quote to authenticate it, so I just like this one for pride. So there you have it, the essentials equal discipline, intuition, recognition, and prayer. And you said, but Sporty, you didn't say prayer. Didn't need to say it, because one thing is for sure, you've heard James Brown say, good God. And so that's definitely how showing that James Brown and his pride. You know, you heard him say, good God. So remember, pride, essentials equal discipline, intuition, recognition, and prayer. I'll drop that YouTube link from what I call the book of 1 James, 1968, in the thread, in case you want to enjoy a version of the lyrics, which also has, by the way, pictures of civil rights activism in the background. Start to see and remember James Brown as a 1960s civil rights activist. I had not seen him as that. But I'll always remind you to let your actions show the pride that you've expressed in the thread. These what you've talked about, legacy, achievement, your family, your sons and daughters, all of these things. I want you to remember that you have expressed them and that you need to let your actions show how proud you are of those, and in every aspect of your life. Uplift yourself by sometimes going back. See, that's pride spelled backwards. Sometimes just go back and enjoy your self-inventory, because sometimes walking backwards refreshes our perspective of what we really need. And then it helps us to do what? To say it loud. I'm proud of myself. I'm Sporty King. And I want you to remember to commit your spirit to constantly seek things and reasons to be thankful. Thanks for watching, engaging, and sharing Glue Wednesday. And remember that we don't need to hump on Wednesdays as much as we need to keep it together every single day. Because one thing is for sure, is that we know GLUE, God's love, really does undo everything. Not that it will tear it apart, but that which is torn apart, he will bring it back together to move you forward, and making sure that you have the pride it takes and the ability to and aspiration to share it. And on LinkedIn, Cecilia Moet came in saying, say it loud, I'm proud of myself. Let me put that on there as our closing slide. Say it loud, I'm proud of myself. And then let your actions speak even louder than those words themselves. But don't neglect how important it is to say it, because sometimes you have to say things loud and talk to your spirit. It's good to say it in your mind, but say it out loud every now and then. Before, I've also given, made a comment in a former past broadcast to remind people to read out loud every now and then. Remember, that's how we teach kids how to read, because what we see on the page, our mind processes too fast sometimes. So you have to read out loud every now and then. Because sometimes you hear someone reading a speech and they can almost sound illiterate because they're messing up. And you say, goodness, can't they read what they wrote? Well, it's because we're reading it in our mind. We have to practice reading out loud as well, as saying out loud. So here's on Facebook, Vic says, goodbye and take care, everybody. And I say the same to you. God bless you. Make sure you catch my broadcasts live on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And each broadcast is of a different type. But if you want to see them sequentially, go to YouTube or my website, because then they're grouped according to whether there's a Monday message, which is called the Monday Morning Moment, the Wednesday message, which is called Glue Wednesday, or the Friday message, which is called Gift Friday. That's if you want to binge on Sporty King. I don't think there's a problem with that. On LinkedIn, Terry Love says, thanks for sharing, Sporty. Taking time to hit the refresh button. Boom. Thank you for doing that. Hit the refresh button, y'all. Get some rest. Get some rest. We got a lot going on in our lives and a lot of information coming at us. So rest is mental as well as physical. So hit that refresh button and get yourself some rest. On LinkedIn, Cecilia said, glad I caught the message today. it was needed. Thank you, because that is, we need to know what we need so that we can therefore start to wisely gather what we want. And I think pride is a thing that we both want and need to have. So once again, thanks so much for joining Glue Wednesday. God bless you. Love you. And I'll see you then. Over and out. Ciao.